everyone, I'm Max. Welcome to another Out of Spec video. Today we have something super exciting and surprisingly super rare, an F-150 Lightning Pro. But it's not just any Lightning, it's being used by Boulder County. So I'm here with Tristano.
Yep, Tristano Greco, City of Boulder.
Awesome.
Fleet manager for the City of Boulder, and I help implementing all new vehicles as well as the maintenance and repair of all those vehicles.
Sweet. Well, can't wait to talk about it. Let's get into it. So Tristano, we've got this awesome F-150 Lightning that's being used by the City of Boulder, and this is not the only one. You guys have a couple of these, I imagine. Do you know
Correct.
roughly how many?
Yeah, so currently we have 5 that are in use and being used by different departments within the city.
Yeah.
We ordered 28 of them January of 2022.
Okay.
And we received 5 of them, all standard range.
Yep.
The Pro models.
Trim. Yeah.
Yep. In like May, June of 2022.
That's awesome. So are you aware if, like, as a City Boulder, as a fleet customer, I imagine you guys were one of the first to probably receive these?
Yeah, so as far as I know, and you know, I could be wrong here, we were potentially the first in Colorado.
Wow.
And one of the first within the whole country to get some of the Ford Lightnings.
That's cool.
In service, yeah.
Yep, and I think it goes without saying that pickup trucks are useful for, you know, managing parks and recreation and being city vehicles, but what makes an electric pickup truck like this useful?
So I would say, obviously, a lot of the city departments need a pickup truck to do a lot of their jobs, whether it's utilities department, doing different meter readings throughout the city, transportation department, you know, has different supervisors that are driving around to different work crews, seeing how their maintenance is going.
Yeah.
They have on-call people who are coming in after hours who need to haul, you know, small bags of you know, patching asphalt, other stuff, and tow things. And then you have the Parks and Rec department, open space department. All those departments need, you know, an F-150 or similar. What makes the electric a good use is, you know, we're confined within the City of Boulder. So, you know, for the most part, everyone's driving around within the city on a daily basis, doing anywhere from, you know, 30 to 50 miles a day is probably a typical department.
Yeah.
There's some departments that have a higher use case, you know, of maybe 80 to 100 miles a day. And that's all something that an electric vehicle or an EV can accomplish.
Even with the smaller pack, that's comfortable range for this.
Even with the smaller battery pack. And so trying to meet some of the city's electrification goals, climate goals, and everything else, it just makes sense in those scenarios where it doesn't sort of impede operations, and just helps add to it. And then there's some cool functions to, like the current Ford F-150, and we have a lot of other electric vehicles as well. But you know, where the frunk provides space for some tooling. We have an air compressor in this one to help. You know, anytime someone calls in and may have a flat tire that can be repaired, we can go out there, fill their tire up, plug it, and then they can come back to the shop later and have that repaired correctly.
Yeah, and it sounds like a small thing, but I noticed too, like I was, I think on my gravel bike out by the res, and I get passed by one of these, and it was just so interesting and silent, because, you know, every other vehicle passing me, I'm well aware of it. It's not like it was a safety hazard, I could hear the tires, but I was just like, wow, like that's just so much more peaceful, because you're out in nature and all that, and here you have this essentially silent drivetrain just passing. It's super nice, especially I think in like a outdoor parks environment as well. And so aside from the drivetrain, I know these are useful, like you mentioned, the frunk is a super neat feature, and just like its plug-in hybrid sibling, the Power Boost, this has really serious inverters and heavy-duty power applications. You've got 110 outlets you can use, like for the air compressor. You've even got 240 volt you can adapt. So what are uses that you know are, you know, being utilized right now, or you imagine that could be used?
Yeah, so currently, you know, we're mostly taking advantage of the 110 outlets. You know, different things like the compressor in this one. I think some of the other departments envision, like, you know, they have different battery-powered tools like DeWalt. You know, maybe with the Parks Department, string trimmers that are still battery packs or other stuff.
Yeah.
You can plug them directly into the 110 and charge those small hand power tools to do whatever operations you need. And and since we only have 5, we don't have quite a big enough sample yet to see the other cases. But I mean, essentially, any building materials, anything else, the tailgate goes flat. You can put a circular saw, other stuff in. If you have to do any cutting, and plug directly into the outlets in the back, so it makes it a great, contractor vehicle, so to speak. Even though we're not, employing contractors.
But you do similar work.
We do similar work a lot of the times, and so there's just a different use for, on-call is a specific one where we have different departments who, respond after hours to different emergencies, different scenarios that happen in the city, and so it just gives more options in one truck without having to specifically build a service body truck that has multiple options to accomplish their tasks.
Yep. And when it came to choosing a vehicle, I imagine you have, I think, gas F-150s in your fleet, some heavier duty Ram vehicles as well. I know there's the Rivian R1T, and obviously those are more expensive and lifestyle oriented. But just because people will ask, what made this the candidate? Because there are other electric pickup trucks on the market, coming to market. What made this seem like the one to go with?
Yeah. So being a city organization, obviously we adhere to different purchasing policies, and spending of taxpayer dollars as wisely as possible. So the biggest thing is when we're purchasing vehicles, typically we purchase vehicles off the state of Colorado bid. So the state of Colorado every year puts out a bid where different dealers in the area bid on the price they're going to sell a certain vehicle for. And once that price is accepted by the state, then basically any municipality can say, okay, we're going to purchase that vehicle as well, and we get the same honored pricing. So the Ford F-150 Lightning is the only truck as of last year that was on the bid at that time. And so that was one of the major things, because to not do that, you have to go through a lot of different policies in order to purchase something. So that's the number one thing, and price really is the other. It was considerably cheaper than a Rivian R1T.
I imagine,
The Silverado EV didn't come out for ordering until about a month.
And they're still not shipping to customers yet.
And they're still not shipping to customers. And so the Lightning was the obvious choice to move forward with when it has, everything that we need to do city operations, and is priced, fairly to accomplish those. Yeah.
It makes sense. And this is a DC fast charging capable vehicle, but I imagine that day to day you probably plug this in. What does the maintenance routine look like for the 5 vehicles you currently have?
So the maintenance routine, like other EVs right now, is relatively non-existent, right? Eventually we'll have to do tires on them. This one is one that I drive on a daily basis, or our fleet division drives on a daily basis. It probably has more miles than most of the others, and it's currently sitting right around 6,000 miles, a little bit under. So tires eventually, washer fluid, wiper blades,
cabin air filter.
Cabin air filter, small things like that.
Right.
We've had a few, electrical issues where the frunk doesn't open, and then the dealers addressed it every single time. Software updates, different things like that. Obviously, like other EVs, there's different software updates that push out monthly sometimes, and you just have to hit the update button, and it updates it. So maintenance right now is relatively non-existent, and so that's a pretty good aspect, and something that obviously over the life of the vehicle helps lower the cost for that upfront. That's a little bit higher.
Yeah, and I imagine honestly in the long term too, these are probably cheap to run in terms of, yes, charging's not free, contrary to what many people think, but electricity is, I imagine, cheaper than fuel, especially when you're looking at the bulk kind of rates that you guys would get. So what does charging this on a day-to-day basis look like?
So this one specifically, like I said, is one that I use. It is driven Monday through Friday, weekly. Depends on what the task is for that day. A lot of time it's just going around town, helping different stakeholders within the department. Sometimes I've got a trailer hooked up to it, pulling UTV or other equipment up to Fort Collins and back, and so the charging looks different. Typically we just plug it into a 110 outlet within the shop, which obviously takes, if it was completely dead, about 4 days to charge. But it's sort of a scenario where, I may go out for 20 or 30 miles, pull it back in, plug it
So
in.
it actually works, yeah.
Let it go for 8 to 10 hours, and then tomorrow it's there again.
Yep.
If we're doing long hauls up to Fort Collins, I'm trailering equipment for service. Then that's when I'll typically come back and stop at Whole Foods 50 kilowatt charger.
Yep.
Charge Ahead America
Evico
has the 150 kilowatt charger,
Yeah.
and give it 20 or 30 minutes to help it out, and then plug it in
Yeah.
overnight. And then we're also doing a lot on the city front to get some level 2 infrastructure throughout the city that's for fleet use only. And
Yep.
so we're currently in that process, and we have 4 dual port chargers out front of our fleet shop for our vehicle and others.
Yep.
That we're currently just waiting on a breaker
Yeah.
because of production issues with even minor things like electrical breakers.
I love supply chains, yeah.
Supply chain issues.
Yep. Classic. Well, that's really interesting to me because, obviously, like you said, it's going to be more ideal to have more level 2 infrastructure in place, both for fleet customers and even the city of Boulder in general, I think, as more people adopt electric vehicles. But I do find it super fascinating that, this isn't driven enough a day, and it's so efficient that 110 and occasional, DC fill-ups are just fine.
Yep. Yeah, that works for me. I know there's some other departments in the city where that doesn't work. Our meter department, utilities, maintenance, they have a Ford F-150 Lightning as well, and they're one of those higher use because they're driving around the city for 8 hours a day, stopping and checking different meters. So sometimes they'll get 80, 90, 100 miles.
Yeah.
And so after 2.5 days, that number's getting pretty low. And so if they're just charging it off of 110. They're only getting maybe 18 to 25 miles
that would
a
give
night.
them some downtime, yeah.
So they'd have downtime, and so they've been having to facilitate fast charging a lot more often than I currently have to do. And that's fine. So we're looking into getting obviously fast charging at our municipal service center yards to help out with that, just so we can have support for all city operations. To if you're like me, where you're only driving 30 to 40 miles, most days, other city departments, or you're driving 100, that we can help facilitate all departments and their driving habits and be prepared for charging and making them successful to be used.
That's awesome. And when you're at, Electrify America or wherever it be in public, I'm sure, these vehicles, I would guess, get some attention from people interested in them, especially the hard to get Pro Trim that I don't think customers can order directly right now. So do you ever get stopped and asked questions about this?
Yeah, I would say not as much anymore, obviously, because there's more and more out there. I'm seeing, residents driving around and some of them as well. But definitely when we first got it, everyone's looking at you why are you putting an F-150 to a charging station that's not going to charge? You can't park there, and then you open the fuel door and plug in, and then they're looking at you weird, and then they're like, oh, that's an electric truck?
Or you open the front trunk and they're like, where's your engine?
The front truck, and that's still a moment of awe, right? Because there's not a lot of EVs that have
such
that
a sizable
big, of a front trunk or frunk, and so that's definitely an attention grabber, and people always look at you and say, do you like it, and is it fast, and different questions like that. Definitely.
And do you like it? Do you driving it? Let's just say, what's your biggest what's your biggest dislike?
So I think for myself, I am greatly impressed by this specific vehicle, as well as other EVs. Comfort-wise, handling-wise, power-wise, noise, all those things are pluses. It's just more enjoyable than driving around an internal combustion vehicle.
Fair.
Unless you're talking, an old muscle car, something back
something
in the days
really special,
that's super special. The lack of noise when you're traveling, up and down I-25 is nice. The vehicle tows extremely nice. That's, I think, the biggest thing that I've noticed is if you have a trailer behind it and you're towing, just the towing experience in general is way smoother. It just seems like more one than if you're driving with a regular F-150 or 250.
Right.
You're getting a lot more okay, you can clearly tell that there's a trailer behind you.
Yeah.
And you don't notice that, you really don't notice it
Yeah.
much at all with that.
Super interesting that you bring that up because we've looked at this vehicle and others before, and some of the more sensational outlets made big stories when this car came out that, or this truck, sorry, that it doesn't tow well, which is not true at all. Electric trucks tow amazingly.
Yeah.
It's just that depending on the aerodynamic load of that trailer, as you've noticed, the range dips down. But if you're driving 20 or 30 miles a day like you are, it's almost like you guys are the perfect customers for a vehicle like this.
Yep.
The people who are towing cross country, electric trucks, maybe they're not, not ideal yet. But for your use case, sounds like it's really good.
Yeah, I'd say in most cases, most case scenarios, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's the one drawback that I don't like is with how nice it is to tow.
Yeah.
The range, is pretty severe, and the range when it's cold is even more severe.
Heating the
so
battery.
it makes it difficult to, drive far places and get your job done. So I can understand, a consumer being like, well, I can't
It won't work
drive
for me
this,
yet.
it's not going to work. You might only get 190 miles of range when you're towing. But if you're just towing around the city and doing different jobs within a small mileage area, it's really a perfect case scenario. It just is the longer uses, the technology just isn't there yet with being able to make it. But as far as towing it during that period, it's, I think, incredibly more proficient and just enjoyable than towing with an internal combustion.
Yeah, I imagine it's got plenty of torque when you need it. If you had to pick a dislike, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean it's the range when you're towing.
Okay.
That's really my only dislike, and that's when departments come to me and I say, hey, you have to get this vehicle, or we need to think about getting this vehicle, and
if they have
we look at their operations on what they're doing. They'll bring up a bunch of concerns, and usually with data and experience, you can throw out most of those concerns. The towing is the one thing that's hard to throw out.
Right.
It suffers on range, so that's really my only dislike with this specific EV is just the towing range. How greatly it's affected.
Yeah, which is fair, but sounds like overall it's a great fit for the department. Do you imagine ordering more of these in the future, more electric trucks to come?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, in January 2022, we ordered 28 of them. We only got 5.
Okay.
So those other 23 got canceled,
Yeah.
and so we had to reorder those.
Yeah.
So we did reorder those in July of 2022, and so we're still waiting on receiving 23 additional ones. 19 of those are standard range. We did get 4 of the extended range, and so we're hopeful those will be here any day. As we're just, we have basically they're replacing mostly all internal combustion gas E85 because everything we do is alternative fuel F-150s, and so those are just waiting to be replaced. As soon as the Lightning comes in, those will be swapped out, and then we want to continue ordering more as long as operationally the city can keep doing its job and what they're supposed to do for residents and for the city, and ordering more. But the production issues right now with government vehicles, they're not being allocated as much as...
They're prioritizing the higher price customer ones, XLTs, Lariats. Makes sense.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys get the rest of your allocation, and I look forward to seeing more of these around. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, Tristano.
I appreciate it.